Guys, so I'm back in town after being away for 3 days. If you're gonna get a shifter, I picked this up this morning. Get a B&M. They have different grades of shifters. Like the one I've used a lot in the past is the B&M Mega Shifter. Well, it's great because you can slam first and second gear, and it has reverse lockout and all that stuff. That shifter is like 400 bucks. And you know, it's worth the money if you're racing, but I'm not really racing with this truck. So this is actually what they call the sport shifter. It's one of their less expensive shifters. And basically, I mean, it was still 250 bucks. There is a little bit of a learning curve on adjusting the cable, but I've done a bunch of these before, so I can kind of walk you through that. But yeah, the B&M sport shifter, if you just need the truck to go into gear and go forward and backwards, you don't need lockout or any of that stuff. This is a great shifter. It's not as fancy as the Mega Shifter. Yeah, we're gonna give it a shot and see if it works. All right, so installing the shifter, one of the things that you gotta do here is you gotta get down to the metal floorboards. What you wanna do is you wanna lay this out, and you wanna kind of locate the shifter where you think you want it, and also actuate it back all the way down to low to make sure that you have room. You don't want it up here so far that you're jamming up against the firewall, obviously. And you want to get it centered as best you can. You can measure if you want. I just eyeballed it. So I'm going to put mine right there. And if you look, you can see that I took a marker and I marked the holes where I need to drill. I've got my holes drilled here, and I've just got the bolts in. Now, one of the things that they recommend doing is to level this shifter, they have you put washers underneath here and lift the shifter up this way so that it's more level. I'm not going to do that because I actually prefer the shifter like angled down towards me because I'm pretty tall. And with the sport shifter, you actually have to pull up on this to get it out of park. So if I raise this up, I don't like where it puts this handle. I like the handle actually angled down towards me, so I'm just going to leave it right there. That's basically it. Once you get your holes drilled, you just test fit them, make sure they fit. Then of course, it's not ready to install on there yet, but the next step is to figure out where your cable needs to go. Now this particular sport shifter is different than most of the other B&M shifters. Most of those come out the front. This particular shifter, the cable actually comes out the back. You got to drill down here in the back. So I'm going to grab the cable and we'll lay that out. Another thing I would suggest is in order to get this tight, put some vice grips on these bolts because otherwise they're going to turn from underneath. I've got all these tight now, so the shifter is mounted. So also your hole for your cable here, I know this isn't pretty, but I'm going to roll this around, and after I get this hole made here, I take some 3/8 fuel line, cut it in half, and I put fuel line on this jagged edge around this. But basically, your cable, once it's hooked up here, when you get it up here, alarm's going off, my wife opened the back door. Once you get the hole made, the cable shouldn't be touching any part of this hole, right? Once it goes up there, it should be in the center of your hole, and it should just, there shouldn't be anything touching it. In other words, no part of this floorboard should be touching it. So it's going to have to be made like that. And then I take, once I get everything set in place, I take the 3/8 fuel line, I put it on this jagged edge, and then I fill that in with that foam. The wall fill stuff. I'll show you what that is. It's pretty good. But this cable has to be free from touching anything when it goes through here. So this is where it needs to be. And then of course the shifter is in place where it's going to be. So it is completed. I'm not going to do a tutorial on how to put this shifter in. I will tell you that it has a lockout for reverse and drive, and on this one you gotta pull up on it and then pull up and back to shift it. But I've got all my gears here. See, I got my cable down here. I'm going to have to patch all this and make it look better. But I did start the truck, and it goes into all the gears and it goes forward and backward, so it makes me happy. I don't want to do a tutorial on how to install these shifters because it's a pretty intense process. But what helped me a lot is B&M actually has a lot of really good installation videos on YouTube, and I just followed their instructions for installation. I mean, I followed these instructions too, but I got a lot of tips off of their YouTube videos about how to adjust the cable and stuff, and it's really in depth, so I don't really feel like I need to duplicate what they've already got online. So, but the shifter is in. Took me like 3 hours to install this stupid thing, but it's working, so rock and roll. I'm gonna take this to the muffler shop. It's not really in running condition yet. I mean, I've fired it up, and I did drive it up on the trailer, but as I button this thing up and fine-tune everything, I really don't like dealing with open headers. So I'm gonna go ahead and trailer it to the muffler shop and have them weld the exhaust on, and then when I get back we'll be able to see how this thing sounds with the new exhaust. So that's my plan. I still got to strap it down, obviously, but yeah, off to the muffler shop we go. Okay guys, so here it is. It's back. A word of warning for you: don't hit the throttle if you're not 100% sure your hood is latched, because the hood came up and you can see what it did to my windshield. It cracked the heck out of it. Fortunately, it didn't hurt the hood. That's what I get for driving it when it's not totally buttoned up, but you can see that windshield. I have free glass replacement, so Geico will take care of that. Not really super loud, but that is actually the way that I wanted it. I don't want this thing to be crazy loud. I think it sounds pretty good. Now I can finish buttoning this thing up, not have to deal with those open headers. So now we start with all the wiring and all the little things that need to be buttoned up, and believe me, there's a bunch of them before this thing is actually roadworthy. Even though I drove it around the block, I really shouldn't have, so we'll get to that stuff next. All right, so what I got going on here is, this is a universal throttle cable. So this goes through the firewall. This picks up your pedal inside, and then of course on the other end we have a lot of different fittings for the carburetor and so forth. This goes into the carburetor and kind of grabs the end of the cable like that. But I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. The one thing I wanted to show you guys here is this. Now, this is a little bracket that they sell, and it goes on the back of the carburetor here, and it has, there's a couple pieces that bolt onto it for the throttle cable and the TV cable from the transmission. This thing is a piece of crap. Do not use that. What you want to do is you want to get a bracket like this made by Holley has one, a couple other ones. This is a steel. It's actually a pretty high grade steel bracket. They make aluminum ones, but don't get the aluminum ones. And this is where the throttle cable is going to go through to this piece here. And then you can see on the bottom there, I've got the attachment here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's back here for the TV cable coming in here. I don't have it bolted up yet or tight, but get this kind of bracket, and then of course my throttle cable. This is the TV cable, and then the throttle cable. This is the old throttle cable. We're gonna just kind of do away with that. But the TV cable goes in back here. Once this is tight, it comes up here, and you have to adjust it and so forth. So yeah, you use this bracket, because that other one that just has the one bolt that comes on here. It is so flimsy. I just had the TV cable from the transmission hooked up, and it basically just actuating the throttle, it bent that thing. So I was like, this is no bueno. Not going to work. So once I get the throttle cable hooked up and the TV cable in and adjusted, I'll show you kind of what this looks like and how it operates. And that's going to be nice because we're going to actually have a throttle. So she's getting there. The only thing I don't have hooked up is the alternator. Now the alternator from the TBI has a big square plug that goes into it, and the plug that they had on this truck was basically like the early style alternator from the 70s. I'm not sure what this is about here. I got to figure out how to wire this well, not this alternator, because this is a piece of junk. The bearings are squalling in this thing. That's that squeaking you hear as this alternator when this thing is running. So I've got to figure out how to get a different plug or get a different alternator that takes this attachment, and that's the power wire for the alternator. So I gotta figure all that out. That's going to be kind of a pain, but I'll do that off camera. So. Well, right now I'm going to work on this accelerator cable and the TV cable and get this thing so it will actually, the pedals and the transmission will work correctly. Alright, so I know it seems like no time has gone by, but it's been like 3 or 4 days since I filmed anything on this. I've got a few more things done. I'm getting really close, you guys, to taking this thing out and putting the screws to it. I've driven it 2 or 3 times around the block, but there's several things that need to be buttoned up that are pretty critical. The alternator's not wired yet. I'm still procrastinating on that. The motor mounts, they're not tightened up properly. I got the cross bolts in them, but they're not tightened. I don't want to risk that. So some pretty critical stuff that needs to be done. I had a couple hours tonight, so naturally what I did is I utilized that critical time to prep and paint the hood, the tailgate, and the wheels, because that's obviously one of the most essential things. When you're on a budget like this, I mean, this is just a crappy, cheap V8 S10. You kind of got to do as many things as you can to make this thing look good. Still got to work on the carpet inside, but all of the electrical, the switches, the shifter, the accelerator pedal, I did do that. I've got an accelerator now. Everything's wired and pretty much finished with the wiring, with the exception of that alternator. So, but yeah, it looks pretty good. So once I get the rest of that stuff buttoned up, oh, and that's the other thing, the front end alignment is horrible. If you look at this, tire, like it's sticking way out at the top. It's like a NASCAR alignment for an embankment or something. But yeah, and then I really got to get that windshield fixed, because that's a big fat ticket here in the state I live in. So I really can't do a lot of driving around with that window. But okay, so here it is. You can see how this bracket really stabilizes things. So we've got our accelerator actuation here. I don't really particularly care for the angle of this coming out. I think it'll be okay, but I may need to reposition that because this is the factory cable. But for now, I've got wide open throttle, and then of course my detent cable here. I probably need to tighten this up a little. It's a little on the loose side, but it seems to be shifting pretty good. I drove it, and it seems to be shifting pretty much where it should be. So one thing on these TV cables, you want to make sure that these aren't too loose, because you can damage the transmission. So if anything, start in a tight place, and then if it shifts too hard and too late, you can start loosening it up a little bit. But I think I'm going to tighten this just a little bit. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to have to snip the end of this off. So I wanted to give you a better shot of it out in the daylight when we can see it. I know the windshield looks terrible, but yeah, spent like 2 hours painting that stuff, even though it's not essential. I just want to kind of give this thing a better look than it had, because it looked pretty crappy. I may even put different wheels and tires on this thing. I haven't decided yet, but that's a possibility. So it's definitely running and driving. It's just a matter of buttoning all this stuff up. Okay, so I'm pretty jazzed right now. So I know earlier in the video I talked about how I painted the wheels. Well, I got to looking at the S10, and those little skinny wheels, wimpy wheels and skinny tires, just, I don't know, they just don't do it for me. So I found something really cool. Is a wheel that Jeg sells, and it's a 15x8, and it is a 5x4 3/4 bolt pattern, which is the S10, and the back spacing is 4.5. If you buy wheels, you guys, make sure you pay attention to the back spacing. That's important. So this wheel, and you can see where it was made, but whatever. These are nice wheels. I'll unbox it and show it to you, and then I'm going to take them down and get the meats and the rubber put on them. But we're going to test fit them on the truck first. They recommend that you do that. So I need to test fit it, and I need to measure to the frame and see how big of a tire. I think I can go with a 60 series tire, but we'll find out. So let's get this open and check it out. Limited finish warranty. Okay, I'll take what I can get. All right. Wow, they package these nice. It's got all this fancy insulation material on it. Oh, look at that. That is truly a thing of beauty. And they come with the center caps too. So I really like these wheels. I saw a couple pictures on the internet of S10s with these wheels, and they look really sweet. So, and it's much lighter. It's an aluminum wheel, so it's going to be a lot lighter than what's on there. Those wheels that are on there are pretty heavy. So right on. So I'll get these on, test fit them, and then I'll give you guys a peek at what they look like. So you can see I'm working on the stupid Dodge Ram today also. My AC fan went out. This is the housing. Now there's a lot of videos on YouTube. That condenser and fan assembly goes right here. I watched a bunch of videos on YouTube how that you can leave the condenser in here and separate the fan shroud and assembly from the condenser, but it is a giant pain in the butt. I mean, you got to loosen up the radiator and pull all your lines loose. I have an AC machine, so what I did is I evacuated my AC system, and I unhooked my AC line here, and I unhooked it from the top here. And man, I'm telling you, like, I've done these before with the AC line hooked up to the condenser because I didn't want to, evacuate the system. And it's a giant pain with those lines hooked up because you have to leave the condenser in here, and you got to separate that condenser out of that shroud in the truck. I took those lines off, pulled my relay panel up out of the way, just got a couple bolts here, and I zip tie it. And that whole fan and condenser assembly just came right out. It literally took me 10 minutes to get it out, as opposed to all that other nonsense. So I know it's a hassle to have to evacuate and recharge the system, but if you have access to a machine, or if you want to save yourself a ton of time, just evacuate the AC system if you can, because it takes like 2 hours off of this job. So yeah, I'm waiting for my wife because I don't have I can't shut the door because this truck's halfway out, so I'm waiting for her so I can go get a motor for this stupid thing. You do have to take the fan off and then take the motor out of here. There's 4 bolts that hold that motor in. My motor is my AC quit working, or was blowing, well, it didn't quit working, but it was blowing warm at the stoplight. And I noticed the fan wasn't working, so I took my DVOM and I tested that motor. That motor is dead as a doornail, but it's OEM equipment from 2004, so I think I got my money out of it. Okay, so I took the new tires and wheels over to the tire shop. They had to order 2 tires, so they're not going to be ready for a couple of days. But the next time you see this, it'll probably have the new tires and wheels on it. So, since it's getting new tires and wheels, there is only one thing left to do with these old tires. Goodbye, little buddy. Yes. Okay, so I know some of you might think it's obnoxious and stupid, but I can't help it. I love it. And those tires are going in the trash anyway, so I'm just gonna have to figure out how to explain these marks to my wife. All right, so the next time you see the truck, it will have new tires. It actually didn't really take that much off those tires. Maybe I should do that some more. I better not. Okay, so I just got back from the tire shop. The wheels are jegs. So this is what we're looking at here. So this is what was on there, and this is what's going on. I know I talked about this being a budget deal, but full disclosure, I spent about $1,000 on these wheels and tires, but I mean, I just cannot live with this little wimpy tire here. It just doesn't do it for me. So wheels and tires make the vehicle. I think it's gonna look sick with these on there, so I'll get them mounted up and I'll show you what I like, what they look like. You're not going to see a lot of burnouts from this truck after I get these on here, because I spent a lot of money on these, so I don't want to shred them. You can see what we did to this tire. This is the one we did all the burnouts in. There's nothing left of it, so definitely got definitely got the burnouts out of my system by shredding that tire. So. Okay, so there it is. A couple of issues I ran into. They fit pretty good, but there are a couple issues. I think it looks amazing. Way better than with them wimpy tires and wheels. So They put the pound-on wheel weights in the front and they were hitting the tie rod, so I had to take those off. We're going to have to get them rebalanced. And the front center caps, see we got that center cap back there? The front center caps don't fit because they are hitting the cover for the rotor hub. So I'm going to have to get a longer center cap or figure that out. But that's all small logistical stuff. I'm very happy. They look awesome. I can't really drive it because the front end's not aligned, so the alignment shop is like 10 miles away. I am not driving these with an out of whack alignment, not with these tires. So I'm going to trailer it over there when I get a chance and have them do alignment and trailer it home. So yeah, I hope you like it. I think it looks cool. I am going to take it around the block, but that's as far as I'm going to go. So I will be back once we get it aligned, and we're getting really close to doing a quarter-mile run with this thing. It definitely makes the truck look so much better. It's starting to really look like a street machine and feel like a street machine now. So I am very happy. And when you look at it from behind, with the two tailpipes sticking out and the tires on it, now people are going to kind of know there's something going on with this truck. The trailer hitch looks dorky, but I need that because I have a trailer to pull, so. Very cool. All right, I'll be back when I button up some more of this stuff, and hopefully I'll have the grill on it next time you see it, and the front end aligned, and the windshield repaired. So thanks for watching, and I will talk to you very soon, I promise.